Welcome to our new studio. All right, this is a Colorado Real Estate Conversations podcast. Matt Mills. Today's guest is Kerri, and I'd like her to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Kerri Kilgore with Realty One Group Apex. I'm one of the founding owners and managing broker here at Realty One Group.
Today's topic is Airbnb investing. Kerri, you've got some experience with Airbnb investing, and I'm curious. So what got you going in Airbnb investing?
Funny enough, when we were opening the brokerage, frankly, when you open a new business, it's a little bit tight. And so the co-owner and myself, are an older couple and not wanting to do things traditionally. So we had multiple houses and we figured we weren't living in all the houses at the same time. So we might as well see if we could make some revenue with them. So we'd been toying with the idea of Airbnb. So that's kind of what launched us into it. We've continued to buy additional properties and help some of our clients buy or sell Airbnbs.
Okay. So when you made that decision to go with an Airbnb versus a traditional rent month-to-month basis, was it you guys looking at hopefully improving the profitability or?
No, it really had to do with the fact that, again, as an older couple, not wanting to necessarily merge traditionally marriage-wise and, sell a house, move in together, was, well, if you're not at houses, and I've seen actual clients of mine do this over the years, which is kind of how I got the idea. Because it's not like it used to be 20 years ago where everybody, you kind of followed a social norm. And there's a lot of folks who have kids from other marriages, things like that. And so you see a lot of folks doing things out of the box. So I had seen a few clients do it. Kind of made sense for us that we wanted access to our homes. We didn't want to give them up. They're fully furnished, dishes, the whole bit. So, could we make them work for us instead of just sitting idle? And at the time, especially the first year or two owning the brokerage, it was a big deal cash flow wise. I don't think we'd be open today if it hadn't been for the Airbnbs.
Really? Okay. So that's interesting because that's really a non-traditional model of investment where you've got the property. The purpose of the property is not to make money, but it's just sitting there and you don't want to move all your stuff out. That's a whole different approach.
Well, part of it though is the ordinances are quite different for owner-occupied versus full-time. And so that was one of the reasons too. So we have a property in Monument, a property in Palmer Lake, and a property on the edge of Colorado Springs right up against the Monument line. So Monument and Palmer Lake, Monument doesn't have any guidance right now. They'll likely follow Palmer Lake. Palmer Lake has guidance in place, license process, the whole bit. The County of El Paso does not. But if they were, I've talked to the county folks, and if they were to put something in place, they would likely follow Colorado Springs, the city of Colorado Springs. So the city of Colorado Springs, their guidance for owner-occupied is much more easily met than full-time. So, and when I say owner-occupied, I don't mean that you're in the house with a guest, although you can be, and I know people who are. We don't do that. We give them the whole house, and we advertise it as the whole house. But it means you're in the home majority of the year, so 181 days or more, or it's not rented more than 179 days of the year, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of the approach we wanted to do. In the first couple of years, we honestly went back and forth between houses and based off of the occupancy. And then when we had something significant in town, like say the Air Force Academy graduation or something like that, frankly, we'd rent them all and we'd go camp. There's been times that we would rent all of our houses, frankly, make about $1,600 to $1,700 a night between the three of them. And we'd go rent a 2-bedroom for the three of us for $200 a night. We've only, typically there's only a couple times a year we have to do that, graduation weekend for the academy, Parents' Day weekend for the academy. Those are probably the only two that we've really done that regularly because we know the houses will all rent.
And you get the optimal price for those weekends.
Yeah. Again, we're retired military. So we have a mindset of, not wanting to, we've heard the horror stories from a lot of the military families about how a lot of folks will jack up their prices. Mm-hmm. And so we don't want to be that person.
Okay.
And so our rate for graduation is the same rate you'd see on the 15th of June, the 15th of July, or the 15th of August. It may not be the same as the 15th of January, but our summer rate is
the same rate. Okay. So you're okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really good. I mean, then you're going to get it filled up, but.
Yeah, we stay pretty busy. We have a third property that was bought to be an Airbnb, full-time Airbnb. It's in Palmer Lake where they have all the licensing in place. But there was some family input that my teenage daughter was kind of tired of moving around. And so that's become our base camp. And we just rent that one for key holidays and key academy events. Or if we're going to be traveling. But frankly, when she heads off to college this summer, it will become a full-time Airbnb again.
And will you have to meet those requirements for that one, or is Palmer Lake?
We already meet it.
You already meet those requirements.
Probably for 2025, their applications are always in May. So we'll stay owner-occupied through May until May of 26, and then in May of 26, I'll convert the application to non-owner-occupied.
She had to college.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are you guys managing yourself, or do you?
Yep, we manage them ourselves. We had started an Airbnb management company, and ultimately came to the conclusion that with everything we had going on with our regular real estate clients, the brokerage, and the Airbnb management, it was too much. So we ended up passing that business to another couple team here at the brokerage.
Okay.
And they now have that. But, it's actually one of the things I recommend most of my clients do when they buy an Airbnb is self-manage for at least 6 months to a year. I think it helps you understand what goes into it. And then if you want to hire a management company, so be it. And most of my clients self-manage. I have had one or two that from the very get-go, they might have been, say, a doctor out of California buying here but didn't live here, that they need a management company from the get-go. But most of my clients are local. Maybe they had a rental house or another property that they want to try Airbnb in. And so that most of them have wanted to at least self-manage initially.
Okay. Now, when you're talking self-managed, you get the cleaners and all that stuff, and then you do your bookings through Airbnb? Mm-hmm. Do you also book through VRBO, or do you have a property website for each?
Yeah. So the first year we did all the cleaning. Again, that first year was lean. I mean, well,
starting a business is
starting a brokerage. No, by the way, this was in the middle of COVID. So we were still wearing masks when we opened at the brokerage. So that first year, and I think it was kind of good to understand what went into it, because it's not the same as like what we do in regular real estate for, say, a move-in or a move-out clean. Right. And
it's like a hotel clean.
Yeah, except if you think about it, if you're renting a house for, call it $550 a night, you're renting a 4-bedroom house for $550 a night. As a family, we probably don't clean out our serviceware drawer very often. There's crumbs in it and that kind of thing, right?
Right.
But when you're a guest at a house, you don't expect to open the silverware drawer and have crumbs in it. So one of the things we learned, and that's why I liked at least initially doing the cleans, is we learned you had to be very careful in who you hired. Somebody who cleans for families may not be appropriate for an Airbnb unless they understand the difference. So the person we have cleaning our homes now, she does have a cleaning business that works, does move-ins, move-outs, and works for families, once or twice a month or whatever. But we had to kind of educate her that, when she's cleaning for those families, she might not clean the inside of the garbage can and the inside of the lid of the garbage can. But with an Airbnb, the last thing you want is to somebody just checked in, they go to throw away,
and there's
a Coke cup from the car, and they open the trash can and it's caked with food because the 5-year-old left it, there from the last guest. Those are instant turnoffs.
Yeah, we stay in a lot of Airbnbs, and we've had different experiences
too.
Some of them have been, most of them are pretty good.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just a different level of attention, and I think too.
I didn't really.
Bit of it. Yeah, and if you think about it, the price point too. If you were staying in a $250 a night place versus a $550 a night place, you're just going to have a different expectation.
Yeah, $550 a night place, I'm expecting there to be olive oil and balsamic vinegar and salt.
And
salt is always the one.
And spices.
Salt and spices.
We actually leave basic condiments. Mm-hmm. We leave a full array of coffee and creamer, not the refrigerated creamer, because folks always wonder if.
Yeah.
Well, and, again, you could take the lid off and put, so we've learned that. But, the little packets like you'd see at a hotel, the little cups, we keep a fully stocked coffee drawer for them. And then, the mayonnaise, ketchup, all those things. And then all the spices, all the oils. And then usually pancake mix, pancake syrup, Flour, sugar, and what way we advertise it is, when you're traveling with your family, you often want to cook at least a meal or two, and you'll eat some out. But it's a real hassle when you need a tablespoon of this or a teaspoon of that. And so we try to make sure that's in the house. But then when a guest leaves other things, we pull it and we'll donate it or something like that because they don't want to see, refried beans and a bunch of other stuff that we've left. But it is nice to not have to worry about going and buying a whole thing of sugar because you need it for your coffee.
Or just a little salt for your eggs.
Yes, exactly. So that's kind of, and we've frankly never had anything less than a 5-star review in 4 years.
That's impressive because there's not a lot of places out there who have that many 5-star reviews. I mean, they have like 4.99 and they struggle, but then do you ever give any guests lower than 5 stars?
Yes. I've probably had about 4 or 5 through the years that we have recommended not be rented to again.
Really? What was the problem?
One of them was a unauthorized party.
Okay. Pretty reasonable.
Yeah. And then they didn't understand what the problem was. It's like, well, our rules clearly say, and we're pretty lenient, frankly, because, again, we're retired military and we have a lot of people who come here for graduation and weddings. And, we have older kids. And so we travel heavily with our kids at Airbnbs. And so it is a real hassle when you have an owner who says nobody who isn't staying here as a guest can't come to the house, all those kinds of things. So we don't have any of those rules, but we, and we want to encourage family gatherings like a graduation, grandma and grandpa are in town and aunt and uncle are in town and all those. And so we don't mind, but we have to put a limit. If you're going to have more than, I think our listings say more than 20 people, you need to get permission. And because again, we're not here for a party, but we don't mind supporting family gatherings. There's a difference. And so one of them was, her interpretation of a family gathering was a family reunion. Well, that's not my interpretation of a family gathering.
That's not the same thing.
Yeah. 27 people and 15 cars is not a family gathering.
No.
Or at least I should have had a say.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if my immediate family is 33 people, that's not a family. That's an insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not an house right there.
We've had a couple that, again, it tends to happen more, frankly, when we've lowered the pricing in the winter, to keep them full, that maybe we become attractive to folks who are more used to hotels and they'll leave trash everywhere. And, literally they think the maid's coming in after them.
Okay.
And to me, it's a little disrespectful. I do expect to have to clean up after a guest, but it is still my home. And most of our guests, frankly, are very respectful.
Yeah, most of you guys are going to take trash out.
And even if they don't and they miss a trash can, okay, they miss a trash can, right? Not a big deal.
Yeah.
But the difference when folks have at least attempted to treat your home kindly versus they really just don't give a darn. Yeah. And then, I feel like I have an obligation to tell another owner that because they can do a lot of damage very quickly. I mean, in a literally 2-day period, you could have thousands of dollars of damage.
Oh, yeah.
So,
it's a risky. Now, speaking of that, what kind of special interest or insurance do you have for this kind of property?
So, you do have to make sure that you disclose to your insurance company. So, ours are, they are part-time Airbnbs, but we do have a rider on each of our home insurances to, protect us because obviously our liability is a little different. We go a little further by keeping an umbrella policy, as a lot of us do anyways, and a lot of realtors do too because of our autos and all the things that we do. But, the Airbnb platforms also provide insurance, although I can't say I've had great luck with them. And sometimes the problem you get in is, do you want to create a hostile environment with a guest over what's maybe a $500 or a $100 bill or whatever. So most of the time when I've gone to a guest with one of my early guests was actually a host out of Kansas City, and it was winter, so it was wet. And so we have a sign on the garage door as you come in the house from, the Airbnb door that it's a no-shoe house because the stairs on the carpet can really get trashed very quickly if you've got snow and mud on your shoes. Most of the rest of the house is all solid surface floors, but those stairs are not. So, he didn't care. It was one of our early guests, so we hadn't learned to lock everything up that we didn't want. And so we had a freezer in the garage. He actually called me to see if he could buy some of my frozen meat.
It's a little weird.
Yeah, there was a lot of weird things, but when we got the house back, my carpet was just filthy.
It's trashed.
And so, I submitted a cleaning bill to him and he paid it.
Yeah.
But, I was a little surprised by another owner.
Yeah, when we were traveling in Airbnb when our kids were really young, so probably about 10 years ago. It was more than that now, actually. My young son, at the time, he was about 3. He tore all the wallpaper off in his room next to his bed, and it was really neat wallpaper too. And we got the bill. We told her right away,
Right.
and we got the bill and we paid it.
Yeah,
it was it happens.
yeah, and most of the guests, I had a guy a couple months ago who kind of tripped and had a glass bowl in his hand and dropped it.
Oh yeah,
sent me a note and he said, "I'm so sorry. I kind of had one of those moments, and tell me what it'll cost." And I said, "It's the cost of doing business. It's not a big deal." I mean, it was probably a $20 bowl from Target, not a big deal. I mean, we really, again, we try to treat our guests the way we'd want to be treated. If it's egregious, I'm certainly going to hold them accountable. But if it's just a simple accident and a spatula handle broke, okay, spatula handle broke, big deal.
Yes.
I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, we've had different experiences with different hosts. We've had hosts complain about crumbs on the counter, which hey, crumbs on the counter.
I expect that.
Right.
But I've also had we're pet friendly, and I've also had guests who don't seem to understand that they should pick up after their pets. Again, I wouldn't necessarily write them up for that, and I'm certainly not going to give them a bill for that. But it are the things that make you go, we don't charge extra for pets. We allow them to at least have the courtesy
to clean up after.
Because otherwise you're getting, could get where you don't allow that anymore.
Yeah.
So you've just harmed everyone else. But,
it's nice to be able to bring your pets.
Exactly.
I mean, you can't
even have an extra fee,
Yeah.
But
actually, we paid more. Most of the time we pay an extra fee.
Most people do. Again, I find the systems for some of these extra things are so cumbersome.
Oh, really?
To add these extra fees in, because you have to kind of manipulate it, that it's really not worth my hassle.
Yeah.
For an extra $20 a night or whatever, especially when my Airbnb is already $580 a night.
Yeah. Which is not, for a house, that's not that bad.
Well, it's also a really high-end house.
Yeah.
So, it sleeps 10, and it's multiple entertaining spaces. Folks like to rent it, for wedding parties, the whole bit. If they were to come with 4 couples, at a hotel around here, the cheapest they'd get is $225 a night.
Yep.
So you're at $1,000 a night versus $580. And oh, by the way, you have a fully stocked kitchen and the whole bit, 2 decks, hot tub, 2 fire pits,
Yeah.
hammocks, sits on an acre.
It's a bargain.
In the woods, in Monument. So, that's kind of the thing. You can't really beat it.
Mm.
What I will tell you is, and this is something I tell my clients, is I think the 2 bedrooms are a problem. I've had many a client who call me and say, "Hey, I would like, investment property. I'd like to stay under, say, 350 or 450 or whatever it is. I was thinking maybe a 2 bedroom." And I usually tell them, don't.
I would never invest in a 2 bedroom. A 2 bedroom has a very specific purpose. It's not general enough. A 3-2 is the minimum for an investment property. You can go higher than that for a rental property,
right.
in my mind.
Yep.
But a 2-2 or 2-1, that's you could rent it out, but you're not going to get market rent, and you're not going to get, and it's not going to be. I don't know how on Airbnb that would even work.
I tell them to 4 bedroom or more, because you want to be in a market that cannot easily be replaced by hotels.
Yeah.
Because if you're competing with a hotel, think about low occupancy. A hotel can go from $250 a night to $140 a night overnight. You may not even be aware of it. And, especially with the software they use where they can, scale things. I used to manage hotels.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be in the business of competing with hotels. I'm not looking for the single renter. I'm looking for the family, or, their grown kid and 2 grandkids are going to meet grandma and grandpa in Colorado Springs because they're coming to visit another, aunt and uncle, somebody else in the family, or they're coming to a graduation, because they want to spend time together and have a reasonable expense.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I don't want to be replaceable by a hotel.
Sense. Now that's for the Airbnb.
For the Airbnb
specifically.
And so several of my clients, I've had to, run the ROI for them and show them, I use AirD&A and show them what the rents look like for that unit versus what I'm recommending. And all my clients that have bought have listened, and I put every single one of them in a 4 bedroom or more.
Okay. And does Airbnb set the pricing for you, or do you set the pricing yourself?
You can. I don't like it. I have a client of mine who recently took they built a new house, and then they took their previous primary and turned it into an Airbnb. It's a really great little log house up here in Monument, and they she started out using the smart pricing, but I told her, again, a lot of my clients I just kind of coach. It's just part of my long-term relationship with them, and I usually will help them with. I have lists I've put together through the years of recommended.
Oh yeah,
all those kinds of things that are affordable and stain resistant.
Do you do the thing with the linens where they could buy the linens if they like them?
Now they're not that high end. I mean, they're $1,300 count, but I get them off Airbnb. Okay. I mean, not Airbnb, Amazon. They're like $47 a set.
Okay.
But they feel nice, but they're labeled. Because that's one of the things I've learned is if you are buying a consumer product, they're not labeled. I mean, the label, you have to hunt for it. Yeah. These actually say queen, full, king.
Oh, right on the outside.
Yeah. At the corner seams. And then what I've done is I create a linen closet and, put them in by sizes and label the shelves, so it's easier for the housekeepers. And I learned the hard way, you have to lock them.
Oh.
Our first year, we had a family, again, winter. Kids needed something to do, and they decided to play fort. Linen closet. And we had to wash the entire linen closet. And we have 4 sets of everything. So I learned after that, too. And these are the kinds of things I tell my clients, right? Yes, you want to leave a set, at least one each size available for them in case there's an accident. It happens. But you don't want to leave your entire linen closet accessible because it could be a mess.
That sounds...
they didn't mean harm, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And do you have to washer and dryer in there?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to really keep up on those. You have to keep up on everything.
Yeah. And you have to... One of the things I learned, too, is I had to pay attention to my capacity. Because one of my dryers at one of the houses was not a large enough capacity. It was taking too long to dry towels. Yeah. So I had to switch it out because the cleaner, she's there for, say, 5 or 6 hours turning a 3,500 square foot house and the laundry's not dry. It's either not going to get clean or you got to pay them extra. And those are the things I try to help my clients with because it's even understanding what to lock, what not to lock, what types of locks to use. Because when I first started, I thought you would have to install deadbolts. You don't have to really change your home that much.
Yeah.
Amazon, and there's other sources, but I don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I found handles where they look like normal handles and the combo is right in the handle. You touch it, wake it up, put your code in. You don't have to drill into your doors and adjust so if you ever wanted to not be an Airbnb, it's no big deal.
Yes.
You don't have to, because one of my houses has really expensive solid wood doors. So the idea of putting deadbolts on them was,
all of them.
Kidding me? So I found a lot of those kinds of things through the years. In my kitchen, I used to leave everything accessible and, guests will shuffle everything around and all of a sudden you've got Tupperware with pans and, things that they don't really need,
I try to leave that stuff on the counter because I'm like, are they going to find this?
Yeah.
I'm putting this in the wrong place.
And again, we do use our houses for ourselves too. So what I ended up doing was taking all the things that were odd, like a bread pan, for instance. Most people aren't going to come make bread. So I've put them away and locked those cabinets, found devices on Amazon where I could just run them through the handles and they're on combos. I did the same with a liquor cabinet. And then that way I'm not moving things all over the place for when we want to use the home. But at the same time, it makes it a lot simpler. The guest still has a ton of access to pretty much anything they'd need. But all the extra stuff we tend to have around a house is not available for it just to get mixed in with it.
Like a cleaning supply. Yeah. I mean, you can have some cleaning supplies.
I leave clean.
Or like some dishwasher soap or some,
Exactly.
And all
So I make sure they have, vacuum, broom, cleaning supplies, extra paper towels, plenty of toilet paper, because that's one thing that drives me crazy when I travel is when I have to go get my own stuff.
I know.
Yeah.
One toilet paper for the entire house. Come on.
I mean, so I have 12 rolls in every bathroom for every check-in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
because for a 3-nighter, I don't need it. But if they're there for 7 nights, so if I don't have to think about how long are they here for, I can't go wrong. So it's things like that I've just kind of err on the side of over so that the guest can't, doesn't have to feel like, well, that guest was there for 5 nights and they had 10 people for 5 nights. Where the last guest only had 3 for 3 nights, and suddenly I didn't have it stocked right.
Yeah, just be ready for everybody.
Be ready.
What about your hot tub? Do you have that professionally cleaned, or you guys take care of that yourselves?
Well, so when we're in town, my partner takes care of that. That's one of his tasks. When we travel, which we tend to in the summer, we hire a company to service them for us. The other thing we found is, again, on Amazon, I can get these individual treatment packets that are prepackaged.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
And so I leave them out with instructions that, if they're using the hot tub, to use one per day, run it for, a few minutes. And then that way it doesn't get too funky in between the professional or us doing it in between guests.
Yeah, because I've been in some hot tubs and some Airbnbs. Not nice.
Yeah, we've opened a few lids that was green.
Yeah.
And we've gotten our house back a few times where we're like, ooh, yikes. What
about smoking? Has that ever been an issue, or did you say no? Is it a no smoking policy?
No, we actually allow it outside.
Outside.
And of course, we're a weed friendly state.
Yeah.
So, we basically, tell them, and we actually put the ashtrays outside for them, that, just please keep it out of the house. I haven't seen any evidence that it's been inside. I mean, you can't always pick up the marijuana smell after it's dissipated, but you can tobacco smell. And I haven't really, in 4 years, I haven't really had a problem with it.
Yeah. Anything you would change about, like, anything you looking to change about your Airbnb management, or do you guys have it all dialed in now? Is like just a machine?
For the most part, as we start thinking about semi-retirement or trying to maybe do less of it ourselves, we are wanting to bring in, we didn't love our hot tub maintenance folks last year. Our landscape folks have been pretty good. Cleaner, I love.
I've heard that one of the most important relationships is the cleaner.
Yes. And giving them access to the calendar. So she has full access to the calendar. She can see what the schedule looks like. She'll usually tell me what day she's planning on coming. It's not always the day of checkout. There's been a few times we've had events back to back where we had a really quick turn. Most of the time I have two of the houses, we have 1 day in between guests mandatory. One of the house that's the bigger, kind of more luxury house that needs finer cleaning, I have 2 days between guests.
That way she can work around her schedule a little bit.
Yeah, and then so she'll tell me when she's coming. But a couple times, she saw somebody add in, like I just had one yesterday who booked for today, and it happened to be sitting vacant. And so she can see that and say, hey, Kerri, I'll clean on, Tuesday of next week.
Okay. Does she ever run over there and make sure it's been empty or week? Does she run by and check it, or?
She doesn't, because she doesn't live close. We do. We live close to all of our houses are within about a 3 or 4 mile radius of each other.
Okay.
Now, when we're out of town, things have happened. And there's been a couple times we've had to call her or a handyman and ask them if they could take care of something in our absence, and they've been great. We have learned to be very preventative because it's bitten us in the butt more than once, where you didn't change all the smoke detector batteries. One went off, you changed it, and then 2 weeks later, another one's going off.
Just do them all at once.
Just do them all. We've learned to have the AC serviced in the spring, have the furnace serviced in the fall, have the windows cleaned.
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine who had an Airbnb down in New Mexico, and they had somebody booked it for Christmas. The furnace went out the day before Christmas.
Yep. We've got one right now that we had a water heater issue not too long ago. It wasn't a big deal, but it's like, I've never seen one this old. It's still working.
Yeah.
And so my partner and I are like, okay, before summer season, we need to replace that because we will be traveling when that sucker goes.
Oh, it'll wait. It'll wait, right?
Wait.
Yeah. You'll be on the flight to Europe, and that's when it's going to go.
And then, now you've got this big expense. You've got an irritated guest.
Yeah.
So we've learned to just plan ahead because otherwise we're stressed. They're stressed. Nobody's happy.
Yeah. And then and as far as the profitability goes, you guys are, you bought these places a while ago. So that, they're probably turning pretty good percentage now.
They're doing pretty good. So on really, I would say we have 2 and a fifth that rents right now. We own 3 houses, but one of them doesn't rent, but a few times a year right now. The last 2 years, we've made about 110. But I think what I like best, frankly, is that most of our maintenance and our supply, it's pre-tax, right? So it drops our taxable income significantly. And then our accountant's really good. Every year when we do our taxes, give him our utilities, our mortgage payments, our taxes, our maintenance. Mm-hmm. And then he takes our days of occupancy
as a percentage.
And then deducts that appropriate portion of insurance, taxes, mortgage, that kind of thing.
Can you force depreciation on a Airbnb the same
You
way you can?
could, but because there are homes, and again, I only have one home that if I was forced to sell tomorrow, I would sell as my investment property and I would take the taxes on it. But the other two homes are listed as our primaries. And so, I don't want to depreciate those and then have to pay tax later. Not. And again, we do live in them. In the summertime. So like in the summertime, my partner may not be hardly in his home. Two of the homes will be rented out pretty heavily, and we'll use the third as the base camp. In the wintertime, it's, you might be occupied, maybe a third. Like if you get 2 weekends and, February, March,
it's good.
You're thrilled.
Yeah.
Whereas in summer, you're lucky to have an unbooked weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now, okay. So you guys you set your prices now. Are you trying to move to like a website model? I know some people are trying to avoid the Airbnb fees by having rebookings done through a website, or is that something you guys haven't really explored yet?
I don't. Some folks do. And I think it depends on your region. So our region, VRBO, is not very big. But one of my clients that just turned her home into an Airbnb this last fall, she actually has been booking on VRBO and Airbnb. And it used to be that if you wanted to do both, you had to use a booking system to tie them together so that you couldn't overbook. And she said they've actually fixed that so that it has some synchronization so that if it books on Airbnb, it'll block it on VRBO. So we're actually wanting to move to that just to see if we can get a little bit more occupancy. Because she said it's not unusual. She'll get most of them through Airbnb, but she'll get about one a month through VRBO. So that, especially off season, that's heavy.
Now, but are you buying your insurance through Airbnb?
No, we buy our insurance through regular owner's insurance. But we have a rider because we do rent them out. But they're not full time, at least not currently. And then Airbnb or VRBO also has insurance they provide you as a host because, of course, they're taking a service fee. So, when we started the Airbnb management company, our thought was to go to more of a website system. But since we abandoned that and we just, are just doing our own, I don't know that it's really worth it because I make decent money. It's a great protection. I've had a few folks reach out to us that you don't quite know who they are, and I will not go off of the app.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had some weird experiences overseas where I went off the app. They wanted to go off the app and talk, and then we ended up leaving those. It just didn't feel right. Yeah. There were some just strange situations.
Yeah, so I've tried to stick to the rules. There's been a couple Air Force families that may have been repeaters. Like they've been here for Parents' Day weekend, and they're coming. Maybe I had one not too long ago. Their son was going to have knee surgery. And so they reached out to me because they, of course, had my contact number from having stayed with us before. That's different. I'm okay with that because we have a fair amount of that here in town anyways, because of the Air Force families. But as a general rule, I feel more comfortable sticking to the platform where I have some security.
Yeah.
My address isn't out there until they at least made a deposit, and all those things.
Yeah, a little safety. It's not bad.
And I've even gotten where if a family member says, if I get a text that says, hey, can I have the entry code? I'll say no. It's in the app. Go to trips, pull up your trip, and there's the information.
For an outside family member coming in.
Now
they have to share that trip with them.
Yeah.
Airbnb.
Now, a couple times, I've had somebody call me and say, hey, my mom and dad are, again, like somebody like my age, their elderly parents are going to actually beat them there and then go get and, again, if they've gone out of their way to reach out to me, I'll usually work with them. But when it's on the fly, like, hey, here's a text out of the blue. Can I have the entry code? I'm like, it's in your app. Yeah. It'll usually be released about 24 hours prior to check-in. I
think it's better to be a stickler for that kind of thing.
Again, it's my home. I actually had a client who one of our agents had a family member check into an Airbnb, and when they checked into it, it was completely empty. And what had happened is the previous guest had emptied the house on the host, and the host did not know it. She was out of town. And so that's scary.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So I think you've got to, it's an asset, right?
And you change your code every time?
I used to. We have door locks where you can change them, and we did that for about a year. And now we just kind of change it periodically. that way, if I have a guest that something didn't feel right at checkout, I can change it. But it's actually because I don't have the kind where I can do it on an app.
Okay, so you have to go.
I had to go do it manually. Now, it doesn't mean I can't do it on an app.
Maybe you could.
Figure it out. And again, since we're local.
Yeah, you're right there. What's your biggest learning? Like, what have you changed? I mean, you talked about some of the things like keeping everything locked up, but overall, like, what if, big learning experience?
Good partners, making sure you have, even if, having a good, grounds person, having a good cleaner, having a handyman or somebody you can call in an emergency.
Yeah, do you have somebody shovel when it snows?
My partner.
Okay, he has to go out there.
But again, over the next few years, we want to move a little bit more into traveling. We've got 4 kids that are going to be overseas August. So, we could easily find ourselves overseas, in January, February for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, seeing the family. So we're going to have somebody lined up to do that. We haven't had to do it yet because we usually travel in the summer or fall. But, I think you just have to make sure that, assuming you care about your ratings, which is how you get rentals, I think you have to make sure you've got backup for whatever you might need that comes up. Guests, they're paying $5 something a night or $4 something a night or more. They'll be patient for a little while. They don't expect you to, at 11 o'clock at night, be there.
No.
Although we have been, but it's not always possible. But it doesn't mean you can leave it like that their whole stay.
There's a level of service. So, what advice would you give somebody who's they have the great idea? I want to have an Airbnb, and I want to use it as an investment property.
I think the thing you got to make sure, especially around here, is that you understand the ordinances.
Yeah.
So Colorado Springs has gotten really tricky, and a lot of folks assume that if it's licensed as an Airbnb, that it's good for the next owner. That's not true.
That's not true.
Most cities require you to redo licensing, and in many places, including here, you might have been grandfathered, but the next owner will not be.
Next owner. Okay, so where do you go to find out this stuff?
Each of the city planning departments.
City planning.
Mm-hmm. And so, Colorado Springs has their own planning department. Palmer Lake has their own. There are a lot of areas, particularly in Colorado, that have become unfriendly towards Airbnbs. The only areas around here that I still highly recommend are Monument, Palmer Lake, and the Cascade area. Manitou is in a moratorium. Parks in a moratorium. Colorado Springs, they have a lot of rules as to which zoning you have to be in if you're full-time. And if you're an owner-occupied, then you have to be with, more than 500 feet from another one. And, they've got all these rules, and they get tricky. So I think a lot of times folks, I've had 3 or 4 buyers through the years call me and they're all pumped up and they want to, well, this one says it has a rental history. Yeah, but that doesn't mean it will pass to you. And every single time I've checked with the city to see if it would be eligible, every single time, and at least in Colorado Springs, it has not been eligible to pass to the next owner. Because there was already too many in that area and they would not. It was grandfathered from before the ordinances had changed.
And they're not going to do that with a new one?
No, they will not. They will not. When that house sells, the grandfather's gone, and you must abide by the new rules.
So it's kind of difficult to just step into this market. This is not something you could easily do.
I think a lot of people don't understand the expenses and the fact that, it is service focused. So they think it's just a cheap or an easy investment. But, the average Airbnb management company is 20 to 25%. So, if you...
On top of the Airbnb fees.
Mm-hmm. And so if you think about, what your margins look like, you need to be pretty confident in your numbers, and you need to be realistic about your occupancy. I mean, mine rent really heavily, at least I would say mid-May through pretty much Christmas. I mean, we stay super solid through October, and then maybe not as much in November, but we're always rented for the holidays, at least 10 to 12 days, November and December. And then it pretty much right after New Year's, it kind of dies. You'll get we might get 1 or 2 rentals a month. And we were just looking yesterday, we've got one house that has no rentals in February, no rentals in April. But So you have to be prepared for that. So like my overall occupancy rate for our 2 houses that we rent heavily is still only like 57, 60%. So if
It's not that bad.
which for us, because we're owner occupied, is not a big deal.
Yeah.
But if you were counting on that to generate revenue,
Yeah.
you might be a little surprised you got about 3 or 4 months where you're floating that mortgage, unless you just carried it over.
Do you ever do anything over 30 days, or is that against the rules?
No, you can. And midterm rentals are different too. So the ordinances change at 31, I think it's 30 days. A lot of the HOA rules change. Some of them are 90.
Yeah.
And most of the city ordinances don't apply over 30 days.
Oh, really?
So midterm rentals is a whole different ballgame. But you also have a smaller pool of users.
Yeah. Traveling nurses or something.
Yeah. And we have had a couple, I think we've had 3 or 4 families who wanted to rent for, say 3 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And we've, given them a pretty significant discount. But you also have to be careful, especially when it's in season. You have to look at what would I have made with a normal guest,
Yeah.
Say 4 guests that month instead of 1. And okay, I'm not going to have 4 cleanings, but the cleaning fee usually takes care of the cleaning anyways. So, or pretty close to it. So now it's less wear and tear to have 1 family generally than 4, so you got to kind of weigh it out.
So they call you and negotiate that.
Well, and I've also learned to put it in so one of our houses, we don't allow more than 14 days.
Okay.
But one of the houses we do. And I think I have like a 35 or 38% reduction.
Okay.
And then I've learned to, like last winter and this winter, that if you're booking within 14 days of your stay, there's a discount, because here, most of our guests are booking 4 and 5 months out.
Yeah.
Because they're weddings and graduations and things like that, right? In the wintertime, you get people who are like doing a staycation, things like that, but you don't get that so much in the summer. So I've learned in the winter to actually offer these short-term, short notice rental discounts to try to keep me full when I don't have bookings. So some of those are the things I've kind of learned.
So, and then as far as, if you're going to have a management company, that's tough to find.
There's a couple really good ones in town.
Yeah.
I've talked to, or my clients have used, but you do have to really be careful. And I think you have to make sure that they're checking your home.
Okay. How do you know that?
Hope that they're giving you reports, and you hope they're ethical on their reports. But what we found is we walk every house after checkout, preferably before the cleaner gets there. If we can't, we ask her to give us a feel for how things look. And, did she find anything out of order? And she's really good about, hey, such and such blanket's missing, or we moved one of the houses has a robot vacuum.
Yeah.
And I moved it from one house to the other, and she's like, well, the robot vacuum's missing.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have told you I took it.
Yeah.
So you need somebody's got to, because otherwise you can't hold a guest accountable.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't happen that often. And then I like to walk the house before check-in, because the cleaner might have been there Tuesday.
Right.
But check-in's not till Friday, and I'm a little fussy. I like the lights to be a certain way, because I don't want a guest to arrive at 10, 11 o'clock at night,
Sure.
and they come to a dark house and they don't know where they're going. It just feels, they wouldn't do that at a hotel.
Yeah.
So I try to leave on a few lights, so that when you walk in, kind of like we would a long-term sale house, right? You don't want it where
You don't want everything.
nobody's ever been here.
You want a couple lights on.
Yeah, so I leave a few strategic lights on so it feels like it's welcoming. And so one of us there's usually 2 walks between guests, one right after checkout, one just before check-in.
With all those houses, it's a lot of hustle.
It is.
But it's not that far from the house. But still.
No, that's why we like to keep them close. And I think, if somebody were going to hire a manager, I think that would be one of my recommendations, is make sure that geographically they have the ability to truly keep an eye on you.
To be over there in like 5 or 10 minutes.
And, if there's, like, for instance, here in Colorado Springs, if they're spread out across the entire city and they've got rentals in Manitou Springs and Fountain and Colorado Springs and Monument, can they really get to the various places to check on them, or is it impossible? And if they say they can, then what's your staffing look like? That essentially it is your asset. And for most of us, any home is a very large asset.
Huge asset.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why it's kind of a risk to go Airbnb, and that's kind of like some people, it's like, well, I don't want people in my house. I don't want to rent. So you kind of face those challenges over time, and you can protect yourself with insurance and umbrella policies, stuff like that. But still, I mean, you're taking a chance, and then, you go through all that, and there's some level of income that you get from it, which is really nice, and especially since nobody has to move their house.
Right.
So, and you don't want to lose that house.
No, I mean, you do have to be mindful. So the houses where we live in and rent, what makes it easy is the masters have multiple closets. So you leave one closet empty for the guest and you put a lock on the other.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good if you're going to pick one out to be an Airbnb, you really need.
If you're going to make it owner occupied. So,
and
so we have 3. 2 of them are really easy to be owner occupied because we have storage rooms. We have multiple closets in the master. So we're not moving out. We don't have a house full of kids. I have one still at home, but that's why we have one house. We only rent out a few times a year. And so, while I might have a dresser in the entire house that has some of my things, all the other rooms are empty. And even in the master, there's a full empty dresser for the guest. And then the one that I might have a few things in, it has a sticker on it that says owner's chest. Just like you might an owner's closet. And then, and if I really wanted to be honorary, I could put a lock in it, but I've never had an issue. So 2 of our homes make it really easy for us to have our own space, and then the guests have their space and them not cross. The house that we ended up making our base camp that will eventually become a full-time Airbnb, it's not as easy, which is why we ended up making it the base camp, is because it only has one closet in the master thing, and it doesn't have a storage room so you don't have the ability to just kind of get things out of the guest way and let them feel like the whole house is theirs. So that's the one. It either needs to be occupied or Airbnb, but it's a harder one to do as owner occupied. So it's I learned that one the hard way. But I didn't buy it to be owner occupied.
You bought it to be, yeah.
I bought it to be an Airbnb until my teenager got involved.
I was going to say, having an Airbnb with a teenager involved, I don't even want to think about it.
So, So, I mean, because what would happen is, so she had, the art carts on wheels with different layers. I had gotten her one of those.
Yeah.
And so she would use that for her toiletries and things instead of the drawers in the bathroom. And we'd roll it into
this.
In the bathroom. And then we'd roll it in the storage room, the house that has the storage room.
Yeah.
Well, the house I bought to be an Airbnb that we had to live in for about 6 weeks while we furnished it and did the yard and all that. Actually, it was about 4 months because we had to put a yard in, sprinklers, the whole bit. And that one, we realized because it didn't have great storage, where do you roll that stuff to?
Yeah, do you all lock up the garage and put it in there?
No, we try to give them access to that.
Yeah.
So that was the challenge, is when the house isn't structured to allow you to separate your stuff from the guest, it became a problem. And so that's why we just said, we'll just make it our base camp for now.
Yeah. Where do you furnish this stuff from? Is it regular furniture, or do you buy or you try to find deals, or?
Both. So, my house, one of my homes was my primary first. So, it's the higher end one. It's got leather sofas, that kind of thing. And so what I've learned, since it's pet friendly, is when somebody tells me they're bringing a pet, I have a basket of pet blankets and, things like that to protect the furniture. And we haven't really had a problem. But as we've bought things, I've learned to Facebook Marketplace is my friend. We've gotten some amazing deals there because we've changed our furniture out over time to meet the guest needs. As a family, we didn't have a huge dining table, yet my partner's house has this huge room that can be a dining room, and that house will handle 12 guests. So we eventually decided the little 6-top table didn't match the 12 head count. We went, I needed to find a big farm table, and I just kept looking on Facebook Marketplace and found a great one. And, because I didn't want to go spend, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. I think
all in the chairs.
Yeah, I think I ended up spending about $1,200, $1,500.
You get a whole set.
Yep. Sometimes, especially accessory chairs, things like that, I'll go to Wayfair. I try to I'm one of those folks who will go to Pottery Barn for ideas, and there might be a few things, especially if it's things the family's partial to, like soft blankets, things like that. But then a lot of other things, I'll get an idea what I want it to look like, and then I'll go shop at the discounts, whether it's one of the home stores, Wayfair, or Amazon, and try to get the look cheaper.
Yeah.
because
Well, you can
it's
find really great stuff on Facebook Marketplace.
yeah.
So I mean, that is a great spot.
One of my houses, I needed some accessories on the walls, and I saw in Pottery Barn where they had taken a bunch of baskets and put them on the wall. But those baskets were like, I don't know, 50, 60 bucks a piece, and there were 5 of them. I went on to Amazon and I found the set of 5 for 55 bucks.
Okay.
That's what I mean. Of getting smart with where you're going to bother spending your money.
Yeah.
But, one of the houses needed a new dining table because, again, it wasn't sized properly. And so I decided it was time to finally make that investment. And it's our higher end home. And
Okay.
so I put in a higher end table. I wasn't going to do, but everything started feeling cheap. Frankly, it's also the home I plan to go back to when my daughter goes to college because it is my favorite house. And I'll rent out the one we're in now.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. So sometimes it's not just about the guests. Especially if you're owner occupying, it's got to be also about you.
And when you go to sell it, would you try to sell it as an Airbnb, or would you try to sell it and then you'd have to sell all the stuff?
No. So the one house, so there's 2 houses that, I think we'd have to be ready to go in a nursing home before we'd sell. But one of the houses, the one I bought to be an Airbnb, my intention, if I were to ever have to downsize my properties, it would be the first one to go. But I really want to get at least 2 years of solid rental underneath my belt because every time my calendar's open, it books. It backs up to the park in Palmer Lake,
Oh, wow.
walk across to the restaurants, great patio, the fireworks are right there.
It's priced right?
I probably overpaid because I bought it. So that's one of the reasons it's starting to come back up. That house, it doesn't sit in the HOA, and it is properly licensed with the city. I think with a couple years of rental, where you're pulling in, say, 50, 70 a year on that house or more, it would make it more valuable. That one, I think.
But they would have to get a license themselves.
Right. But Palmer Lake doesn't have a moratorium.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They allow 10% of the doors in town.
Is there a distance between them?
Nope. Nope. Just 10%. And then, of course, you have to abide by the rules. There's a few rules, like owners can park on the streets, but guests can't. You have to have off-street parking for your guest count. We ended up pouring an extra concrete pad, because my driveway's not particularly long. Some of them I don't necessarily agree with the rules, but you don't get to make them. So, if I don't want to have my license in jeopardy, I got to make sure and before I poured that other pad, I would tell my guests, okay, there's room for 4 cars, but the house will handle 10. So if you're coming, because sometimes you've got girls' weekends and things like that, then here's where alternative parking is.
Okay.
And then we just decided to, pour the other.
Have you ever had neighbors complain?
I have one neighbor that, whether he should or not, one time he complained that I had guests coming in at 11 o'clock at night, and that was just not acceptable. And I said, I come home from the airport at 11 or 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Got a little loud with my doors the next time I came home from the airport, and it was me,
Yes.
It's like, really, is that really worth complaining that, and oh, by the way, you're not my next door neighbor. You're across the street and back some. So you're just being ornery,
What are you doing up that late anyway?
He tends to be the neighborhood watchdog.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And you ever had any problems with the city?
No.
No?
One time I got a complaint that we had guest parking on the street. And I said, those aren't the guests. Those are my cars. And according to the city ordinance, I'm allowed to park on the street except during snow, from a file perspective. And they're like, okay. But, somebody had assumed they were guests. So, yeah, sometimes I get a little ornery and I'll purposely leave my cars not in the driveway. The city says I can. And I've got that one neighbor who likes to kind of sometimes get involved where he doesn't need to and makes assumptions. And so, okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
You'll find my guests are more mindful of your rules than
me.
me.
Yeah, no kidding.
I can be a little ornery sometimes.
So overall, it sounds like a pretty good experience. It sounds like you guys are it's kind of a great for your specific situation. And for someone else, they could, they find themselves in a similar situation. It's a great solution.
I honestly think for my clients who are over 50, 55, they're starting to change their lifestyle. They're not ready to give up their home. They're maybe starting to travel or their kids are scattered around. I think, that's why we owner occupy and that's what owner occupy fits, I think, is it's an ability for you to not feel like my home's sitting and I'm spending thousands a month and yet I'm maybe away for 5 or 6 months of the year total.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we started was like, okay, let's make it work for us instead of it feeling like we have a weight on us. How do we make it work for us? And for us, it's been great. We've talked about, at some point we may be, I'm not going to say too old, but old enough that we don't want to hassle with it anymore because there is work involved. And so at some point we may downsize, things like that, or quit renting altogether, but we're not there yet. But I think a lot of folks think of it as an all or nothing.
Right. That's what,
Yeah.
That's why this was a really interesting conversation for me, because I hadn't really ever thought about, well, I'm in this house part of the time. It kind of opens up my mind to the idea of, wait, my wife and I could, once the kids go to college, my wife and I could go travel to Alaska for the summer and we could rent our house out for the whole summer.
So I just had one of my clients refer another client. All their kids are off at college or, working. He's an airline pilot. She's got aged parents and his parents are aged. So when her husband's flying, she's often off helping with one of the set of parents. But they've been in the home for 14 years and they don't know where they'd go next. So they're, 55, 57 years old, not really ready to sell. So they called me. I didn't know it was for Airbnb. I go over, realize it's not a listing appointment. And I said, no problem. I'm here. I'm here to help. We walked around. I gave them some ideas on which closets to lock and different things. You take this family room and you pull out, sectional sofa here, things like that. And, they asked me, what do I charge? And I said, I don't. This is a service I offer. You were referred by another client. I'm here to help. Again, you're retired military. I'm retired military. I'd like to think that this is what we do for each other. And they said, well, and we guarantee when we are ready to sell, we will sell. But to me, that's kind of how it's supposed to go. But they were exactly what I'm talking about, where they weren't ready to move on. They didn't know where they'd go next anyways, but yet they're not there. And so until they know, it'd be nice to get some income. And they have a great 4-bedroom house here in Monument, close to the academy.
That'd be perfect.
They could easily, probably earn 50, 60.
Which covers the cost. I mean, because even if you own your home outright, it's expensive to.
Well, and you were going to keep it, like in their case, if they were going to keep it anyways. But it also, as I talked to them, is they didn't really need to do any upgrades initially, but maybe to sell, there was a few things that would get them a better price point.
Yeah.
So I advised them, you don't need to change your counters for an Airbnb. But, when you get ready to sell, if you were to replace that, 12-year-old granite or granite tile or whatever it was with, say, a new quartz and a backsplash, that might help your value at resale. So
not only that, but you also get a tax deduction for
right.
doing it.
But the Airbnb funds could actually help them with some of that, and, especially since they're not ready to do that right now. So that's some of the conversations I have with my clients is, if it's going to sit anyways, can you turn it into an asset?
Yeah.
And then can you use that money to either help defer your expense or offset your expenses, or help you put money back into it? One, it helps your rental price, but then it helps your resale price. And these folks that are like me who are using it as an owner occupant, if they're not depreciating it, they're not going to get bid on the other end down the road.
Really, this is a really quite interesting conversation. Thank you for all this information.
Of course.
I hadn't really thought about Airbnbs in that way before. A lot of the Airbnbs my wife and I and my kids stay at, it's always just Airbnb only. So sometimes it's somebody's house.
You think so?
Yeah, I know.
I know.
I
don't think most of my guests know.
They don't know.
Because again, I have 2 closets. One's, it's a walk-in. The one they have access is completely empty. It's a walk-in, and it's got hangers for them, the whole bit, and then the other one's locked, and they have no idea.
Yeah, there's sometimes we run into locked doors and we figure that out. But I mean, you're right. Sometimes I wouldn't know. It feels like somebody's house, but I don't know. But I've been the ones where I know it's Airbnb only.
Yeah, the ones that don't have salt, pepper.
Yeah.
And you can't find but 2 rolls of toilet paper, 1 roll of paper towels. You're there for 5 days, and you're like, did your maid even stock?
Yeah.
Or, you don't bring, you're not they don't offer shampoo or, any of that kind of stuff. It's like, I've seen a few of those. I'm like, really?
Yeah, they're
kind of weird.
Odd. We always I try to give 5-star reviews to everybody, or not just give a review because I know they're just trying to out there hustle, but at the same time.
As a owner, if I stayed in Airbnb that was not up to par, I will either not do a review.
Yeah.
Or I'll make the public piece where it won't kill them.
Yeah.
And then I'll give them a private note.
Yeah, we've done the private notes.
Because I understand it is their livelihood. And, it's really hard to overcome. And again, if you're using a cleaner or you're using staff, you may not know something's happening.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to kind of take that approach because that's what I would, if we really miss something or my cleaner or miss something, I'd want somebody to give me the benefit of the doubt and not just, ding me, because kind of like getting a bad Google review, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really hard to do.
Yeah, it's really hard to recover.
Yeah, it's hard to recover.
Yeah, I'm always like that one. I mean, even if something was wrong, I'm going to be kind on the review, but then give them a note. I've done that. But overall, I generally have had good experiences in all my Airbnbs, and we travel probably 10 times a year for tournaments and stuff. So that we're always staying in Airbnb.
Us too.
We go to the same ones, like too. We're going back to the same one in Vegas we always go to for fights out there.
Yep. We've had baseball teams come back. We've had Air Force families come back. We've had a couple Air Force families stay with us 2-3 years for, parents' weekend and things like that. And tell the next family, I just found this one my kid's senior year. You need to
book it early.
Yeah. I think for those people who are looking at full-time Airbnb, they really need to understand the numbers and make sure that they're still comfortable. When it's owner occupied, I think you've got more room.
There's a lot of
trying to balance things out, right? And it may be just a way to hold on to your property. I just realized I'm missing showing.
Oh no.
So we'll cut.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Again, this is Colorado Real Estate Conversations, and we have meetings.